serious autistic people of Reddit, what do you wish more people knew about autism? It's kind of hard depending where an autistic person is on the spectrum, monsieur. So for example, if you encounter an autistic person that has problems with socializing, don't consider them as this antisocial person who wants to be left alone, because they probably might want people to hang out with. They're just too shy when it comes to asking. Or at least, that's what happened to me. Edit. I fell asleep and woke up to a lot of notifications. I saw some questions which are people asking for advice. It's with deep regret of mine to say that I'm actually not very good at giving advice, and I'm very worried about wording something out wrong. Basically, I'm bad at answering questions. Same here. I feel like I'm being creepy when I talk to people. Even commenting this is very awkward for me to do. Laughing at me when I'm expressing happiness instantly makes me unhappy. I knew a guy who went to my college for a couple of years with Asperger's, who really liked rocks. He would occasionally approach me and start talking about them, and I'd listen sometimes when I didn't need to go to somewhere, because I could see just how happy they made. Hi, monsieur. But I also witnessed many times where people were unnecessarily mean to hi, monsieur. There were some people that thought of him as a novelty and would feign friendship and feed him alcohol, just because they thought it was funny when he was drunk. Looking back, I wish I would have done more to help them out and stop the monsieur. I remember one day before he left, I went to the gym for a run and all the treadmills were taken. So I went to the indoor track that was hardly used. About 10 minutes into my run, he comes in with his mom and goes into the middle of the track with her. He starts showing her these various sword fighting techniques that he had learned, because apparently he was really into that too. Then he notices me as I'm doing a lap and eagerly waves. I wave back and he motions me to come. So, I took out my earbuds and jogged over. He introduced me to his mom as his friend. I could tell it made her really happy that he had a friend, and he was really happy too. I had only briefly talked to him a few times, but I did my best to be as friendly as I could be. After a few minutes, I excused myself, saying that I had to get going. So I left. That was pretty much the last time I saw him, because he left school shortly after. He was a really nice guy that most people just misunderstood, and looking back, I wish I had tried to get to know him better. Sorry for rambling. What you said just reminded me of him and his love of rocks. I wish more people understood how terrified I, and possibly others, are that it will bar us from jobs, opportunities and relationships, a normal life, because other people see us as lesser, as difficult, not worth managing, or as broken. I feel like things are often harder just because people view me that way. It perpetuates itself. I worry when I tell people I'm autistic on a date that they're gonna bounce, because they then think they're doing the equivalent to dating a toddler. We recently realized that my husband is on the spectrum somewhere. We have not gotten an office diagnosis, but instead of making me feel like he was less, it was like shining a light on all his issues, and suddenly everything clicked into place. I love him and understand where he is coming from so much better now. I wish we had realized before now. We have 2 kids and he is the most amazing dad. Having autism doesn't make you childlike, it makes you different. If everyone was the same, the world would be boring. I hope you find someone who loves you for all of you who you are. Edit. Well, this blew up. I will try to respond to everyone as soon as possible. It is quite late here and I am nodding off. We have feelings. We have empathy. You don't look autistic is not a compliment. Telling us everyone is a little autistic doesn't help. Oh my God, thank you. I've been trying to express this and I didn't know how to put it into words. A lot of people with autism show no outward signs of it. One of your friends, coworkers, etc., could be autistic and you'd never notice anything strange about them, or maybe they're a bit shy or awkward in certain settings. In my case, group conversations. But nothing major. For those people, autism isn't necessarily a disability as such. There would be no reason to treat them any differently than others even when you do find out they are on the spectrum. Monsieur, as a general rule of thumb, don't assume anything about an autistic person. Find out what they're like and respond appropriately. Don't assume they have the same strengths, struggles as your autistic nephew or an autistic celebrity or whatever. Edit. I should probably clarify that I am only speaking for a specific group within the community here. People who don't want or need special treatment, be it from friends or people with authority, just because they have autism. Monsieur, as an autistic person, that's how I feel. But there are also a lot of people with autism who depend on special treatment and couldn't survive without it. Especially people with low-functioning autism. Monsieur, it's a very broad spectrum. Monsieur, I never meant to imply that autism as a whole is not a disability. Personally, I think low-functioning autism should be its own separate disorder with its own name, because it would avoid this kind of confusion. But that's a whole other discussion. 99% of representations are absolute bullshit. If you really want to know how to deal with an autistic person, ask the autistic person. It's so easy. And preferably ask 50 of us, because the symptoms can wildly differ from a person to another, too. I once heard, if you've met one autistic person, then you met one autistic person. I think that summarizes that perfectly. None of us are the same. That's what makes it a spectrum. Monsieur. Something I wish my teachers knew when I was growing up. Me avoiding eye contact doesn't mean I did whatever they accused me of. Nor does it mean I don't feel sorry. And it's certainly not meant to be disrespectful. It's just that I don't do well with eye contact. Also, I know my social skills aren't the best. And I do try to work on them. Monsieur, but not telling me when I do something wrong and thinking the mere fact you're upset with me should lead me to realize what I did wrong and how to do it better. Instead of just telling me asterisk isn't fucking helping asterisk. I've accidentally made my boss really insecure of his hands because I tend to watch hands instead of eye contact. Haha. He stops waving them around and puts them behind his back and is like, wait, no, stop looking at my sleeves. Isn't it? We don't look autistic. And telling us that is not a compliment. It is genetic, not vaccination-based. It's so disgusting for anti-vaxxers to act like autism is worse than dying by polio. We are as diverse as neurotypicals, but simply our thinking pattern is a bit different. You don't recognize us on streets because autism doesn't affect our looks. You notice it once you start interacting with us. Just like you wouldn't recognize a left-handed person until they start writing or doing other activities with their hand. Edit. Something I want to add after reading a question about, isn't autism by definition not normal? I replied to the person with this. The word autism comes from the Greek word autos, which means self. It describes conditions in which a person is removed from social interaction. In other words, he becomes an isolated self. WebMD website. It's actually something I wanted to add to my original comment, is that people say we struggle socially, but no, we are fine being alone and lesser social. What we really struggle with are overstimulations, which are the causes for our meltdowns. Yeah, it really annoyed me to find out how many fucking people think that autistic people look like they have Down syndrome or something. I wish people knew how much different autism is on girls. Researches on this topic are just beginning to be made. I'm not from the US, and in my country there isn't any research being done nor available in our language. So far I've only found resources in English. So there's a lot of misinformation even between psychologists and other professionals. I'm studying psychology and a big part of our course at the moment is on autism. A lot of my classmates were astounded to find out that autism has a sex divide of close to 50-50. Because next to nobody could say that they'd met any autistic women. I went hunting for the top autism in women shows differently to autism in men comment. And yours is the closest to it. People are often astounded to find out my girlfriend is on the spectrum, but she shows all of the typical female behavior, which has a lot more copying of neurotypical behavior and therefore hides itself very well. Interesting story. She spent the first 28 years of her life with no idea she was autistic until she met me. I commented at some point shortly after we started dating, "You're obviously on the spectrum," and, well, it led her to a sudden mini midlife crisis where everything about her life suddenly made sense. A few years later, and she has a therapist in her life, is much easier understanding why the world is too noisy and incomprehensible at times. Every case is different. You can't just assume it's the same with every person. I feel like everyone thinks people like us are just all socially awkward. But it can be a lot more than that. For example, I have quite mild Asperger's syndrome, and to most people I seem like everyone else. But I've met people with more severe cases that can't even speak and need constant help. Never assume every person with autism is the same. Just because I can act normal a lot of the time does not mean that my autism doesn't affect me. The majority of my time spent with others is literally an act, and it's extremely mentally exhausting and emotionally draining to the point that I have frequent meltdowns when I'm finally alone and able to be myself again. This world wasn't made for me or people like me. When I work in customer service, my bosses think I'm the perfect employee. I'm genuinely nice, always doing my best, a quick worker. They don't realize I had multiple panic attacks before work and that when I get off I'm so drained, I go home and cry. It's so hard to keep up the act of being a normal human to the point that I don't know how much longer I can do this. Edit. I just want to say I really did not expect this amount of replies to my comment. And reading all of them has helped me realize I'm not alone in this. I was under the impression I probably wouldn't do well anywhere. But I'm going to look into some of these other jobs that people recommend and hopefully I can get my life back. You are in the wrong type of job. There can never be peace for you in a customer-facing position. In my opinion, I burned out after 20 years of IT support. I am trying to find work that can deal with autism. So far no luck, nor do I even have a clue what to look for. Only idea I have is learning to code. As a newbie 50-year-old coder. We're not emotionless drones. If anything, we feel more emotion than the average person. Depending on the person, that will be shown more or less. Autism is a spectrum disorder and can be different for everyone. I'm fine with the internet generalizing this. I do it often too. Some people might not be fine with it, and that's okay. Acceptance is what we really want. Autistics don't have to redeem themselves. They don't have to be savants with incredible IQ, or masters of a certain skill. They are worthy of respect regardless. I wish people would understand that being autistic does not mean we are stupid. It's very frustrating to be treated as a being of lesser intelligence just because we think in maybe act slightly different than someone without autism. It is highly annoying when people think that we are stupid and incapable of using logic and common sense. It's also difficult for a lot of us to read body language and understand tones of voice and facial expressions. I wish I didn't have to explain this as much as I do. It's very tiring. As others have said, autism's a spectrum, so I'm only speaking for myself. Firstly, sensory issues are no freaking joke. If I ask you to stop blaring music, or to stop touching me, then I 100% mean that. Your fun and games I feel for hours after. For me, sensory issues are my biggest thing. Secondly, after I make a mention about my autism, don't start infantilizing me. I promise I am by no means stupid or a baby. Right now, I speak 3 languages, and I can ice skate, and I have a high GPA. You're not fucking stupid. See also, fuck you. Special education teachers when I was in elementary school. Special interests literally calm me down when the social anxiety related to autism gets bad. I'm listening to this band or this artist or speaking in German to no one in particular because it Makes this knot in my stomach lessen. I'm not trying to be annoying. Also, please don't use the R word or special needs. It's gross and ableist. Along with vaccines cause autism. I mask so much that I'm exhausted all the time. I hate how I, and so many others, feel like we have to conform in how it's been drilled into my head. Edit. Holy shit, this blew up. Thank you guys so much for caring and responding and for being so kind with the replies. If I could, I would sit down and talk to each and every one of you who responded to this little post. Some of these responses made me tear up. And I'm so thankful for that. And thank you to the kind Reddit human for the silver. I'm answering some of the questions I got asked here since so many of you wanted to know. 1. I moved to a different state right before Sandy Hook when I was 8. And was placed into special education then. Post-Sandy, I was treated by both regular ed teachers and special ed teachers like I was a fucking monster. I was 8. And shy and quiet and kind. Never liked breaking the rules. Those teachers ignored all that and proceeded to treat me like I was stupid or a monster. They'd scream at me. They'd talk to me like I was slow and had a -1000 IQ. I got an 8 for behavioral issues a year later. I was by no means a behavioral problem either. And that 8 only gave a shit about my autistic traits and making me conform. While talking to me in that stupid, slow voice. She didn't care that I was bullied and suicidal at the ripe wee age of 9. When I was in that classroom, my god, it was lifeless. All the kids looked dead inside as the teachers all talked in that stupid slow voice. 2. The word r***tard is offensive and increases stigma. So please don't say it even as a joke. Also, while we're on this topic, please don't say autistic as a joke or whatever. That's the absolute worst. Thank you for sharing. Your response is helping me to better understand my son. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.